Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the sources you send us and pull out the actionable stuff. Today, we're looking at competitive efficiency, specifically for poker players. How can you instantly get better at poker without, spending every waking hour grinding away, often not even productively? So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to extract strategies that focus on how you study and, equally important, how you actually perform at the table. We want to help you, the listener, play closer to your best game more often, every time you sit down.
That really is the core insight from the sources, isn't it? Improving your game, it's less about the sheer number of hours you put in the quantity and much, much more about the quality of that time. And, crucially, integrating the right kind of performance habits. It's about finding leverage, not just brute force effort.
Okay, let's dig into that leverage idea because I think the common wisdom, especially for recreational players, just watch more training videos, right? Read more articles. But you're saying quality over quantity. We need to get our heads around passive versus active study. What's the real difference?
Yeah, it's a huge difference. Passive study is, well, it's the easy route. It's comfortable, like you said, watching a GTO video while you're eating,
Right.
or just skimming an article. That stuff builds some basic understanding, maybe some familiarity. But here's the key thing. It doesn't really activate the neural pathways you need for making quick, tough decisions in the moment.
Okay, fails to activate the neural pathways.
Can you break that down a bit more? What does that mean practically?
Sure. Think of it like um, reading sheet music for a really complex piano piece. You look at it, you understand intellectually where the notes are, what the timing should be, but you haven't actually played it. Your fingers haven't learned the movements.
Ah, okay.
Passive study is like reading the music. Active study is sitting down, maybe in front of people, and actually performing it,
Yeah.
forcing your brain to retrieve that information and execute it under pressure. You consume information passively, you get understanding, actively apply it, test it. That's when you train your brain to make better decisions fast. That distinction feels critical. So, if passive study is the trap most people fall into, how do we actually do active study? What does that look like?
Right. Active study demands, well, actual effort, real focus. It means you have to articulate things, defend your reasoning. So talking through concepts with other players is huge. It forces you to solidify your logic and, crucially, running your own simulations with solvers. Not just browsing what someone else found, but setting up specific spots you struggled with. And, the basics too. Writing down hands, taking detailed notes, really analyzing your opponent's tendencies and your own decisions. That's the work that primes the brain.
I like that we're moving beyond just studying alone in a dark room. That brings us to collaboration and something the sources called the protege effect.
Mhm.
Sounds interesting. A lot of players do try to just figure it all out themselves, don't they?
They do, and it limits how deeply the brain engages. The protege effect is pretty fascinating psychology. It's the idea that when you teach or even just explain a concept to someone else, you actually understand it better yourself afterwards.
Really? How does that work?
Because explaining forces you to organize the information. You have to structure it logically. You identify gaps in your own knowledge you didn't realize were there. And you're actively retrieving the information, which is a much stronger way to build memory than just passively reviewing it.
So wait, even if I'm, say, a mid-stakes player explaining basic preflop ranges to a total beginner, that process helps me.
Absolutely. It makes your own more advanced understanding more robust, more accessible in your mind. It's a powerful side effect.
Huh, okay.
And the sources point out you don't even necessarily need a real person. There's an accessible alternative.
Which is?
Just pretending to teach an imaginary student. Seriously. Talking it through out loud, structuring the explanation. Yeah. It forces the same kind of mental organization.
Okay, that's a neat trick. And for finding actual study partners, the sources mention some good online spots.
Yeah, communities are key. Things like the GTO Wizard Discord server, for example. They're not just for tech support for the tool. They're buzzing with players, posting hands, debating spots, analyzing lines. That's exactly the kind of active, collaborative discussion we're talking about. Club GG communities, too, sometimes.
Finding that kind of interaction seems vital.
It is. But let's add another layer, the emotional side. The sources were really clear on this. Enjoyment matters. A lot.
How so? Enjoyment as a motivator.
As a motivator and a learning enhancer. If you actually find the topics you're studying interesting, maybe you love digging into river play or ICM calculations, your focus sharpens, you retain more information, and it just becomes easier to really go deep until those concepts are second nature. You're pulled in rather than pushing yourself.
So success isn't just about forcing yourself through the boring parts. It's actually linked to finding enjoyment in the process of getting better, not just dreaming about the winnings.
Precisely. If you dread opening your solver or reviewing hands, you're fighting an uphill battle. You'll naturally avoid the active work.
Right. And one last point on study habits. Regularity. Staying connected even when you're not doing a formal study session.
Yeah, this combats the forgetting curve we mentioned earlier. We lose information incredibly fast if we don't reinforce it somehow. So this isn't about deep dives every day, but more about light, regular engagement,
Like what?
watching live streams or recorded sessions from good players, maybe following some insightful poker accounts on social media, reading forums, places like the Bluffing Monkeys forum were mentioned, places where strategy and hands are discussed regularly. It just keeps the strategic language and concepts bubbling near the surface of your mind. It helps counteract that natural decay of knowledge.
Okay, so we've covered studying smarter, maximizing that learning time, but now we get to the crunch time, right? Actually sitting down and playing, all that great active study doesn't mean much if you can't execute when it matters. How do we make sure we're ready?
This is probably where the biggest gains are for most recreational players,
Okay.
honestly. And the sources were absolutely united on this. The number one killer, fatigue, playing when you're mentally tired.
Yeah, that was flagged really strongly. Playing fatigued is the biggest issue holding people back. Why is it so bad? I mean, beyond just feeling sleepy.
It's actually kind of a double whammy. First, the obvious stuff. Fatigue just tanks your cognitive abilities.
Hmm.
You make more misclicks, your decision-making gets sloppy, you call too wide, fold too tight. Simple mistakes that directly cost you money. Your win rate suffers immediately.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second part?
The second part is more subtle, but maybe even more damaging long-term. Playing tired actively slows down your learning process. It can even reverse it.
How does it do that?
Well, think back to our active study. Let's say you spend an hour really nailing down a specific bluff-catching strategy on the river. Then you sit down to play at 1 a.m. exhausted. You face a spot where that strategy might apply. But because you're tired, you misread the situation, or you execute the play poorly.
Right.
And maybe you lose the pot. Now, your tired brain doesn't necessarily think, I executed that badly because I was tired. It might think, that strategy doesn't work. You essentially create a false link, a bad assumption, because fatigue caused the poor application. You're almost training yourself incorrectly.
Wow, okay. That's a really important point. You're undermining your own study when you play tired.
Exactly. You make that bad call with King 7 thinking it's King Jack because you're zoned out. That's fatigue hitting your execution and potentially distorting your strategic takeaways.
So, to fight that kind of casual, tired approach, the sources suggest treating sessions like competition. But hold on. For a lot of people, poker is casual fun. How do you adopt a competitive mindset without sucking the joy out of it or getting super stressed?
It's not about adding stress. It's more about having respect for the game and, frankly, respect for the effort you put into studying. Too many players drift into a session just kind of hoping to get lucky, hoping to run good.
Yeah.
But when you mentally frame it as a competition, not necessarily against the other players, but against your own potential mistakes, it shifts your focus. It conditions you to take each decision seriously, to try and execute your A game consistently, regardless of whether you're winning or losing that specific hand. The goal becomes execution, not just results.
Okay, I see. The competition is internal, striving for consistent good play. And if we're thinking like competitors, like athletes, that implies a warm-up, doesn't it? You wouldn't see a runner just roll out of bed and onto the starting line.
Precisely. And that's where a pregame routine becomes incredibly valuable. Just like athletes warm up their bodies, poker players need to warm up their minds. It's about deliberately shifting into that focused, competitive mindset, priming the brain for optimal performance.
What does a good poker pregame routine look like? What kinds of things should be in it?
Consistency is key. It needs to be something you do every time. First, maybe some light physical activity, even just a brisk walk. Gets blood flowing, helps focus. Second, some mental centering. This could be brief meditation, some deep breathing exercises, just something to quiet the mental noise from the rest of your day.
Uh-huh.
And third, a quick strategic warm-up. This isn't heavy study. It might be running a few drills on a trainer like GTO Wizard just to get the strategic neurons firing. Or maybe quickly reviewing, say, 5 key hands or concepts you learned recently. Just a few minutes to remind your brain what good poker looks like.
So it's about setting the stage, physical readiness, mental calm, and strategic focus.
Exactly. That routine builds confidence and consciously flips the switch from casual mode to competitive mode.
Right, now this leads into something I find really interesting, performance psychology, because even with perfect study and a great warm-up, you're still going to make mistakes. Everyone does. How you deal with those mistakes seems to be the final piece of the puzzle. The source is really hammered on self-forgiveness.
Yeah, it might sound a bit soft, maybe, for a game like poker, which is pretty cutthroat. But why is forgiving yourself so important? Well, the research on it is pretty clear. Self-forgiveness actually reduces anxiety. It improves your ability to learn from the mistake rather than just dwell on it. And it makes you better equipped to handle the next challenge productively.
So beating yourself up, thinking, I'm such an idiot for making that call, that's actually making things worse. It's counterproductive.
Totally counterproductive. When you get caught in that harsh self-criticism loop, you impair your ability to think clearly. It's like tilting about the fact that you tilted.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
I've been there.
Right. You get so focused on the error itself and the negative feeling that you completely miss the chance to learn why it happened. And worse, you often carry that negativity into the next few hands and make more mistakes. The effective path, the one the best players seem to take, is, okay, acknowledge the mistake, objectively, what went wrong, learn the lesson, and then, crucially, move on, immediately, with confidence. It frees up all that mental energy you'd waste beating yourself up, so you can focus purely on the next decision. #outro. So if we bring it all together, these two big pillars, continuous improvement really comes from, one, adopting those active, often collaborative study methods to get the most out of every learning minute, and two, combining that knowledge with a focused, competitive mindset at the table. That means having a solid pregame routine and, importantly, practicing self-forgiveness when mistakes inevitably happen. These aren't just fuzzy concepts. They work together to create a real, immediate, and sustainable jump in how consistently you perform.
So for you, the listener, thinking about putting this stuff into practice, maybe the final thought to take away from the source material is this. Remember that poker isn't just about odds and cards. It's fundamentally a journey of learning and self-development. Try to find the enjoyment in structuring your improvement, in studying effectively, in showing up prepared. Focus on that process, and the results, that instant elevation in your consistency, they really will follow.